Hello everybody and welcome to today's Introduction to Crowdfunding with Creative Scotland webinar. Today we're going to be looking at crowdfunding and in particular Crowdfunder UK and how that can be a really amazing platform for you to fundraise for your creative idea. We'll also be looking in detail at the Creative Scotland Crowd Match 2023 and how you may want to submit an application in order to become part of this amazing live match fund that will be starting very, very soon. So we'll look at the criteria for that, potential eligibility, and also how that all works. We have allowed 60 minutes for this session. That does include a Q&A as well at the end. So please do feel free to use the chat box, which you should find on the right hand of your screen. Pop any questions that crop up about crowdfunding or the live match fund into that chat box, and I'll try and get through as many of those as I can throughout the session, if not at the end in the Q&A. We are recording today's session. You will receive a follow-up replay, so you'll receive an email containing a replay link to this particular session, along with some really helpful links and resources for you to get your crowdfunding journey underway as well. If you do find that you have any issues with your internet connection, then please do just press the refresh button, which should be up by your browser bar in your laptop or computer, and you should come straight back into the live room. We would normally be joined as well virtually, I was going to say in person, but virtually by one of our previous winners, I should say, previous contestants, somebody who's done really, really well with their crowdfunding campaign. We've got some brilliant audio. Unfortunately, she was unable to make it in person to today's session, but we've got a lovely kind of video clip where we're talking to Gaynor from SamBaYaBamBa Youth Band, and you can see they're actually featured in a lot of the promotion for this year's crowd match. So we'll hear about her amazing campaign, what taking part in Creative Scotland has managed to do in terms of the fundraising for the project, and also unlocking all of those additional benefits as well. I'll be sharing some links periodically throughout the session into the chat box about the crowd match itself and some of those wonderful resources. So do feel free to click on those. They'll open up an additional page on your laptop. You can have a look at those in your own time, but I will include those in the follow-up email as well. Okay, so without further ado, we'll get started. So for some of you here today, you may have a good idea of what crowdfunding is and maybe even used Crowdfunder UK itself. Crowdfunder UK was set up around 10 years ago now with the idea of tackling society's challenges by making ideas happen. So the idea behind the platform is allowing projects, whether that be a community organisation, creatives such as yourselves, business owners, political campaigns, personal causes, you name it, it's probably been crowdfunded for, to set up a crowdfunding page on our website, launch that, so to go live, have it be public facing, share that wonderful project page link with their networks in order to bring in financial contributions in order to raise money to make their project happen. You may well be familiar with the concept. You might have used other platforms such as Just Giving or GoFundMe. We have a couple of USPs that make us stand out from those particular platforms, and we'll cover them in a little bit more detail. But I just want to give you more of an overview of the kind of things that we've been able to do over the last 10 years. Let me just move myself out of the way a second. So to date, we've helped projects raise over £274 million towards their projects. We see around 300 projects adding daily to the platform. So as I say, that could be anything from a personal cause through to a community organisation. Maybe it's even a political campaign or a startup business. If you take a look at the website, you can actually explore all of the different projects that are on there. You can search via keywords or via location to get a bit of an idea of the types of things that have come onto the platform over those 10 years. We here at Crowdfunder UK are a rewards-based platform. This is one of the standouts compared to those other fundraising platforms that I've mentioned. Now, rewards-based crowdfunding is giving project owners such as yourself the ability to offer a benefit of some kind in return for a financial contribution. And this can work really, really well, especially with people like yourselves within the creative industries, where you may have a product or you might have a service or an experience that you are able to offer to your supporters in return for their financial contribution. And we will look a little bit more in detail at the types of rewards that we've seen come through the platform in previous Creative Scotland crowd matches, and the kind of thing that you might want to take inspiration for. But it's a really, really great way to incentivize people's giving. You might be able to encourage people to donate a little bit more if they're claiming a reward. And also it's a great way to say thank you to your crowd and to your community by giving them something back for their contribution. So you really do need to think about what might appeal to your supporters, what you can offer as an organisation or an individual or business, but also what's going to resonate with them. What kind of things might they want to see as a reward from yourselves on your page? There are also lots of additional benefits to crowdfunding. Of course, primarily it's going to be about the financial raise. You need to raise the money to make your idea or your project happen. But in turn, along the way, you'll have all of these wonderful benefits as well. So firstly, you'll develop that validation in your idea. You're going to build confidence in the idea that you have. Just by putting it out there, it's a little bit of kind of research and development, if you like, being able to test the water without having to financially back it yourselves to see if there is an appetite for what you're trying to deliver. You'll be able to build awareness as well. So we encourage you to really network and promote your crowdfunder, and we'll give you all of the tools necessary to do that effectively. But it's a brilliant way to create a buzz around your idea, drum up some interest, and to get noticed by a wider audience as well. So you may be talking about these brilliant ideas that you have with your nearest and dearest and your friends and your family. But the idea behind crowdfunding is to push that network a little bit wider and a little bit broader. And by doing that, you're creating a bigger audience. So when you actually go to deliver your project, you've already got people that are invested and you've got contacts that you can reach out to in order to really make the most of that project delivery. Everybody that supports your crowdfunding campaign will automatically become an advocate. They're going to start talking about who you are and what you're doing to their friends and their networks, and that's going to help build a really engaged audience that are going to be waiting in anticipation for this really exciting project delivery that you're going to be able to do once you have the money that you need. You're going to build meaningful connections as well. So whether that's going out and talking to the high street businesses to see if you can get them engaged with promoting your crowdfunder, maybe they can offer you something in kind for a reward. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. But also all of those supporters are going to be really invested in your crowdfunding journey. We encourage you to keep in contact with them, and there are different ways you can do that via your crowdfunding page to make sure that you're keeping them in the loop with all of those exciting milestones that you're hitting with your fundraising, any exciting things that might be happening outside of the crowdfunder. You might have some press coverage, for example. You might be able to with the money that you've raised, you might be able to start getting that project, maybe the first phase of that project underway. We always encourage you to make the most of utilising the ways in which we give you to contact and to stay in contact with your supporters. They're going to be your captive audience for when you come to deliver your project. You'll learn lots of new skills. So by taking part in things like our Learn platform, which I'll give you the link to, it's a free online resource. There are 4 different sections to it. If you work your way through that in your own time, you're going to develop really brilliant transferable skills to get you crowdfunding like a pro. Whether that might be networking skills, marketing, creating engaging content for your page, learning how best to engage with those around you to really promote your story. I imagine that all of you here today, because of being within the creative industries, have got a really good sense of how to convey your story both within written text and also visually as well. And we highly encourage you to be visual, use video content, use images in order to really captivate your readers and your supporters' interest when putting your page together. And also use the tools available to you within our Knowledge Hub to write things like press releases, make sure your content is varied that's going out on social media. So all of these might be relatively new skills to some of you. It's a brilliant way to actually develop these skills which will serve you in different areas of your professional, personal life going forward as well. Another really big draw to the Crowdfunding UK platform is the extra funding and support that we have available. So we work with over 70 national and regional funding partners, Creative Scotland being one of them. We have over £10 million worth of extra funding money available to eligible projects. So one thing that I would always encourage is, of course, you're here to learn about the Creative Scotland Crowd Match. When you go through the process of setting up your crowdfunding campaign, you will automatically be matched with any funders that we think, or our computer system thinks, that you may be a good match for. Make sure that you put applications in for each one of those different funds. As you'll hear from our previous crowd match entrant, that you can actually receive money from lots of different funders as well. You can have multiple pots of money, multiple pledges made onto your project. So it can be a really, really great way to boost your fundraising potential as well. It can help you to make additional connections. So as I mentioned, we have some regional partners. That's quite often local authorities and local councils. And if you're not already on the radar of those organisations and those councils, it could be a great way to develop new connections, new positive relationships going forward, which can really open up and broaden those conversations for future development of projects as well. So a really great thing to investigate and take a look at when coming to the Crowdfunder platform. So for some of you, as I mentioned, you may be familiar with this concept and how it works. For those of you that don't have much of an idea of crowdfunding or how the Crowdfunder UK platform works, essentially you set up a crowdfunding page. So you're going to sign on to the Crowdfunder UK platform. You'll create your own individual login. You'll then create a page to tell your story. So this is where you're going to get really creative. You're going to have a really highly visual, eye-catching page. You're going to tell your story in a really engaging way, not only for those people that know who you are, know all about your project and your idea, but those people that might not have heard of your organisation, might not have heard of your potential project. So you need to be thinking in two slightly different narratives when you're actually creating your page. It needs to be detailed. You need to let people know exactly why you're raising the money, what it is that you're hoping to deliver. But I would say to try and do that in bite-sized sections. So use headers, break up bodies of text with headings, pick out any key information in bold, and always break up those bodies of text with some relevant imagery as well. Add a video if you can. Videos are a really brilliant way to give a bit of a snapshot into your overall project. About 1 to 2 minutes is ideal. That will really hook in those supporters that are firstly short on time. If you can convey who you are, why you're crowdfunding, and what you're crowdfunding for, and how people can help you achieve your goal within maybe 1 to 2 minutes of video content, that is going to be a really easy way to get your message across to people. It's also a brilliant way to showcase your project and showcase who you are. So maybe film that on location if you can. Have the project owner or somebody to do with the organisation speaking to camera. It doesn't have to be highly edited or highly scripted, but do make sure you have a bit of a script so you can cover all of that really important information that I mentioned. But it can be captured on a phone. It just needs to be uploaded either via Vimeo or YouTube. And again, we've got in our Knowledge Hub a really brilliant guide on how to put together an engaging video. So do make use of the resources that I'll send through for you. Once you've set up your page, your story section of your page, you're going to think about the rewards that you could offer. It's a really brilliant way to incentivize people's giving. As I mentioned, you want to think about unique things that you can offer as an organization or an individual to do with your project and to do with the creative industry that you work in. But you're also going to tap into your local business community and those around you in your network that may well be able to offer you something in kind that you can add onto your project page as well. Once you've set your project page up and you're happy with its content, you're happy with its potential list of rewards, before you actually go live, that is the time where you will be applying for any of those additional extra funds on top of potentially the Creative Scotland Crowd Match. It just gives you a really good parameter and a really good message going forward to know what your goals and your milestones are that you will need to hit in order to release any of this additional extra funding. Once you've been potentially approved for those, that's when you're going to go live. In terms of the Creative Scotland Crowd Match specifically, we'll look at the dates in a little bit, but there are key dates for you to go live and for you to close your crowdfunding campaign. So bear that in mind when setting up your page, that you need to make sure you're working to the deadlines that we have in place for this particular crowd match. Once you go live, you're going to share your crowdfunding unique link, so your page link, your page URL with all of your network. You're going to start small. You're going to look at your friends and family foremost, and then you're going to let that slowly ripple out to all of the different areas of your network. One of the things you were tasked to do as part of the Learn platform is actually create a network map. And we'll look at one of those a little bit further on in the session. But essentially, in the planning stages, you need to know who you're going to contact, how you're going to contact them, and at what stage in your crowdfunding campaign would be the most beneficial to contact them. So the Creative Scotland Crowd Match. Now, this is something which is a really exciting opportunity for those of you in the creative industries in Scotland. We've worked with Creative Scotland now for many years. This year in particular is a really exciting time to get involved. So Creative Scotland have teamed up with Crowdfunder in order to make a pot of money available to be distributed between, a group of shortlisted projects. Let's see if I can move myself. This wasn't a very clever slide, was it? Let's put myself down here. There we go. Okay, so there is this year, very excitingly, even bigger and better, £150,000 available for projects to tap into. So that's £150,000 in total of match funding available. That breaks down to each eligible project could be in receipt of up to £10,000 towards their creative idea. So that's either 50% towards their initial target, up to a value of £10,000. So for example, if your initial target for your project is £20,000, you could receive the full £10,000, which is of course 50% of your target. If your project target is £5,000, you may well receive £2,500 from Creative Scotland. If your project target is £30,000, you would only receive that, it's still a huge amount of money, but you would receive £10,000. You wouldn't receive any more than that. So it's a maximum of £10,000 towards your target, up to 50% of your target as well. Not been very clever with my slides today, have I? Tell you what, I'm going to take myself completely off the screen and then I can talk to you about the eligibility. So in order to be eligible and to take part in this year's Creative Scotland Crowd Match, you must be aged 18 or over and resident in the UK at the time of entering the competition. Your project, your organisation and your delivery needs to be based in Scotland. Entrants can be individuals, so maybe freelancers, it could be a group, or collaborative group, could be organisations or businesses within the creative industries in Scotland. In order to apply, you will need to submit 100 words or less application form to us, specifying how your project fits with the criteria of the crowd match. You'll need to also, as part of that application process, let us know your target, also links to things like your social media, your name, your email address, ways in which we can contact you as well. You'll also need to run a crowdfunding campaign between Monday the 13th of March and Friday the 14th of April. That is the time where the live match funding is available. We would encourage everybody to launch on that Monday morning, and you would need to close obviously on that Friday the 14th of April. We would have support in place in order to make sure that you are ready to launch for that particular Monday, but do bear in mind the time frame, and you would need to stick within those parameters in order to take part in the crowd match. I will share details to the T's and C's and the eligibility criteria in the chat box in a mo, along with the funding page as well for you guys to take more of a look at. But if it sounds like you, then I would absolutely encourage you to put in an application as soon as possible. So in terms of some key dates for the crowd match itself, so applications are currently open. I will share the link to submit your application, as I mentioned. So you want to let us know all about your project, how it fits with the criteria of the competition in 100 words or less. It's a very straightforward application process. It shouldn't really take you more than kind of 10 to 15 minutes to complete. You, of course, will know all about your amazing project, and it's just a way for you to concisely let us know who you are, what your outcomes are going to be, and what your amazing project delivery is going to look like. And then on the 5th of February, applications close. So be sure to submit your application before 12 p.m. So midday on Sunday, the 5th of February. The shortlisting process will then begin, and all of the shortlisted entrants will be informed, if not before, then on the 10th of February, so on Friday, the 10th of Feb. That gives you a wonderful amount of planning time to make sure that you are using all of the resources available to really plan your crowdfunding campaign. Get that page looking really engaging, apply for any of those additional funds you may well have been matched with, get all of your promotion set up, make sure you've got a really brilliant kind of stock of images and things that you can use for your varied content to promote your crowdfunding campaign, because you will be launching on the 13th of March. So all shortlisted entrants will be going live with their crowdfunding campaigns 9 a.m. on Monday, the 13th of March. You may well want to plan something like a launch party. Make sure you've secured some of those all-important donations from your nearest and dearest and your loved ones ready for that 9 a.m. so that you can really hit the ground running and make the most of the live match funding. And then for the 14th of April, so you'll run your campaign for around a month, keeping up that momentum, making sure that you're hitting every part of your network and bringing in those all-important donations, and all the crowdfunding campaigns will be set to close at midday on Friday, the 14th of April. So from here on in, you're looking at a couple of months of potentially quite kind of intense fundraising, getting involved with the whole process. But the more you put into something like a crowdfunding campaign, the more you will get out of it. And we will obviously help you along the way with all of our amazing resources to make sure that you're as successful as you can be. So in terms of how the funding works, I've mentioned the live match funding a few times. So this is another thing that's really exciting this year compared to how it's worked in previous years. So this time around, the Creative Scotland Crowd Match is working as a live match fund. What this means is that each individual pledge and donation to your project will be matched in real time up to a value of £250. So for example, if a supporter donates £20 to your crowdfunding campaign, Creative Scotland will match that at £20. So you'll see a £20 pledge come on, and then Creative Scotland will pledge £20 to match that. If a supporter donates £600, for example, to your crowdfunding campaign, Creative Scotland will match £250 worth of that pledge. So each pledge will be matched up to a value of £250. And then in total, your project will be able to receive a maximum of £10,000 in match funding from Creative Scotland. In terms of what we mean by an individual donation, that is a unique supporter. So somebody who has an individual email address and banking footprint. If somebody was to donate to your crowdfunding campaign multiple times, only that first donation will be matched. So it's a really brilliant idea to make sure that you're throwing that net, casting that net really nice and wide to bring in lots of individual supporters. That's the best way to maximize your live match funding potential. Of course, if somebody wants to donate multiple times, that's brilliant, but please just bear in mind that in terms of the live match funding, that first initial donation from an individual supporter will be matched. Leads me nicely on to setting a target. So each crowdfunding campaign and project owner will need to think quite in detail really about their potential target that they're looking to raise. It's a really important part of the planning process. You want to think about setting and striking a balance between a realistic target. So how many people do you think that you can put this crowdfunding campaign in front of? How many people can you bring to the platform to donate onto your page versus what's the minimum that you need to make this project happen? In terms of thinking about a realistic target, we see on average that 1 in 20 people that view your page will make a donation of some kind. If you've got rewards on your page, that can, as I mentioned, really incentivize that person's giving. So we see the average donation be around £20 or so. that can raise to upwards to around £50 per donation, depending on the types of rewards that you have on offer. So we always recommend, if you have rewards, to have a really nice broad spectrum of different price points. And it's things that are really incentivizing not only those that know about you and that are really invested in your organization or what you do already, but also that wider community as well. Think about the minimum that you need to get your project off the ground, to get it up and running. You can always plan to overfund your project. So we allow you to set something called a stretch target. So once you've hit 100% of your initial target, you can carry on fundraising whilst your project is live. You can move that stretch target as well. So let's say you want to raise £10,000 for your project. That's going to really get your project off the ground. You're going to be able to do your project delivery for the next kind of foreseeable future. You've done all of your costings and you know that with £10,000, that's going to be a really good start to be able to get this off the ground. If you were to raise £15,000, however, you would be able to do all of those extra added bonuses, the kind of frills and the lovely wish list of things that you could add onto your project. So in that instance, your initial target would be £10,000 and you'd set a stretch target at 15. So when you've hit 100% of your initial target, you've raised your £10,000, you can then carry on crowdfunding towards that 15. If you are doing really well and you can see you're going to hit that 15, you just increase it. You are a successful crowdfunding campaign if you hit 100% of your target. Looking at the two different funding ways, we'll look at that in a minute. But essentially, your stretch target is that lovely added extra. It's a bonus to your initial fundraising. It can be really lovely to give your supporters an additional goal to aim for once you've already been successful and your project is still live and you have some time to be able to continue fundraising. So as I mentioned, there are two ways in which you can crowdfund. There's the all or nothing, which essentially means if you do not hit 100% of your target, everything gets refunded to your supporters and everything gets refunded to our additional funding partners as well. So the Creative Scotland Crowd Match, any of the extra funding partners you might have been fortunate to bring on board as well. That sounds incredibly scary, and you might question why anybody would want to choose such an option. It can work really well in certain ways. If you have a particular piece of equipment, for example, that you need to buy and it costs a set amount of money, and if you do not raise that amount of money, you can't buy the equipment, your project isn't going to happen. And for sake of transparency with your supporters, you might choose all or nothing, because if you don't raise 100% of your target, your project isn't going to happen. You're not going to be able to do what you said you were going to do. So in that instance, you might choose all or nothing. It can create a really good sense of urgency for your crowd and for yourself. It can build motivation and momentum to make sure that you hit your target. However, the flip side of that is if you can make use of any money raised, you could choose to be flexible funding or keep what you raise. This works well if you've got, say, some project delivery, and any amount of money that you raise will help you in some way to get towards that ultimate goal. The thing to bear in mind with a flexible funding or keep what you raise project is do check the terms and conditions of any of the additional funds that you've been approved for. 99.9% of our funding partners will still insist that you hit 100% of your target to actually secure the money that they've pledged. And that is the same for Creative Scotland. So whether you are all or nothing or flexible funding, you will still need to hit 100% of your target in order to secure the Creative Scotland crowd match money. If you were to fall short of that target and you were flexible funding, you would forego the extra funding. You'd forego that money from Creative Scotland, but you would keep all the money that you'd raised from your crowd. We do, however, of course, really encourage you to set a realistic target so that you know you're going to be able to achieve 100% of it, because ultimately you're here to hopefully be part of the crowd match, get that additional funding from Creative Scotland, potentially get additional funding from our other funding partners if you're eligible. So you really want to think about hitting 100% of your target, regardless of what funding mechanism you choose for your crowdfunding campaign. And we will give you all of the tools to help you do that as well. Something to bear in mind when setting your target is any additional costs that might be attached to your crowdfunding campaign. One of the things to think about is fees. So depending on your organizational structure and how you're set up, there may well be platform fees that you may incur as part of your crowdfunding campaign. You can look at all of these on the fees page. Again, I'll pop that into the follow-up email for you to look at in more detail. And it's detailed in the T's and C's of Creative Scotland as well. Every single crowdfunding campaign that comes through the platform has transaction fees attached to it. And again, depending on the way in which your organization is set up, will depend on the amount charged as transaction fees. But essentially, that's a fee associated with all of those donations that come onto your page. No money is kind of taken in real time. Everything is held in our third-party provider, which is Stripe, so that when you close your crowdfunder successfully, your fees will be removed from your overall amount raised at that point, and you will receive a payout from Crowdfunder UK minus any fees. So a good thing to do is to think about your overall target, so your initial target, and then maybe adding on a few percent, maybe 5 to 7% on top of that, just to absorb any of those fees that you may well incur. You know you're going to incur transaction fees. Take a look to see if you might have platform fees attached, and also any extra funding fees as well. And that's all detailed in the Creative Scotland terms and conditions. So do put that as part of your planning with your target to be able to absorb any of those costs. You might find that with the selection of rewards that you have on offer, that there might be some costs involved in that, whether that be physically delivering things to people, or it could be that you're putting on an event and there's costs associated with that. Again, try and absorb that either in the target or actually in the costing of each of those rewards to make sure that you come away with what you hoped to raise, and that the fees and those additional costs have been absorbed before the payout actually reaches you. I've mentioned extra funding a few times. It's a really lovely thing to investigate. Hopefully you guys are going to be eligible for lots of different funding that we have on our platform. But of course, the Creative Scotland Crowd Match is going to be the main draw for you guys here. But do take a look at our extra funding page on the website as well, just to see if you might fit the criteria for some of our additional funders. In terms of applying for that extra funding, with Creative Scotland Crowd Match, you're going to get shortlisted. So it's an application process ahead of putting a crowdfunding campaign together. However, once you've reached the stage of putting your crowdfunding page together, there is a whole section on extra funding. We will ask you to tick this box, which is highlighted, to allow us to share your information, which is essentially your page information, with our additional funders. You'll let us know who's likely to benefit from your project, the potential outcomes of your project, and with all of that information, our computer software will match you with any regional or national partners that we think may well be a good fit for you as well, and you can put in those additional applications. This can be a really good boost for your fundraising. So we're going to look at what makes a good crowdfunding campaign. I just want to dip quickly into the chat box just to see if we've had anything come through that I could answer for you now. Message from Chris, no worries at all. It's great to see people coming into the room whenever they can, so that's brilliant. Okay, message from Alistair. Hi, is the launch date Ridges as we're planning to launch earlier than March? Essentially, the live match funding is only available for that period of time. We do encourage everybody to launch for that period of time. It's maybe a conversation to have if you do get shortlisted. If, of course, you unfortunately don't get shortlisted, you can launch a crowdfunder at any time, but it may well be a conversation for after the shortlisting process, because we really do encourage everybody to be kind of live at the same time. But in terms of the crowd match itself, it won't be available outside of those dates that I've mentioned. So the 13th of March to the 14th of April. Okay, message from Emma. Is the 100% required inclusive or exclusive of the match funding, e.g. £5,000 target is 100% 5k from the crowd, or 2.5 from the crowd, or 2.5 from the match funding? So the 100% includes any of the pledges that you've been approved for. So yes, in that instance, if you are part of the Creative Scotland Crowd Match, you would fundraise for £2,500. You would have received £2,500 from Creative Scotland. Therefore, you've hit £5,000. You've reached your initial target. You've secured all of the money. So when we talk about 100% of your target and reaching 100% of your target, that does include any of the additional match funding that you've been approved for and has been pledged onto your page. You will see it show in your target raise. You will see Creative Scotland as a supporter on your page. So all of that money that's being pledged in real time and match funded against those supporter donations will automatically go into your target raise. So essentially, yes, you're only tasked really with raising 50% of that yourself. Anne, can we get a copy of this webinar? Absolutely, it's all being recorded and we'll send that through to you at the end of the session. Alistair, do we have a list of funding partners and their eligibility? Yes, we do. What I'm going to do is we've got this wonderful video for you guys to listen to, Gaynor from the SamBaYaBamBa youth band. Whilst that is playing, I'm going to put all of the relevant links into the chat box so you'll be able to have a look at all of those different pages as well. So in terms of what makes a good crowdfunding story, you really do need to strike this balance between the team of people that are behind the project, the network that you can amass between the group of you, and then the story that you're trying to tell as well. If you can create a really engaging story, have a nice, wide, diverse network that you can tap into, and the team of people that are helping to put that crowdfunder together and promoting it are really engaged and proactive, you are going to have a successful crowdfunding campaign. If people can make use of the resources that we have on our platform, it's, again, all the information is there for you. We always tell you to have a look at what people have done beforehand as well. So one of the links I'll be sharing is to explore other projects. Take a look at previous entrants. They're all listed on the bottom of the page from last year. So they're listed on the Creative Scotland Crowd Match page. You'll see all of the entrants from last year. Take inspiration from their pages and their rewards. You might want to search a little bit more broadly on our website to see different creative projects within your area, search via keywords. It's a really brilliant way to just see what resonates with you as a potential supporter and see if you can replicate that on your pages as well. In terms of the team, some of you might be individuals and freelancers. If you can, encourage friends or family to really support you through this process. You might want to be able to, where you can, delegate certain tasks to people. They might have a strong social media presence, or they might be really great at writing content, or they might be an amateur photographer or something along those lines. Use people's skills wherever you can. Gain feedback from those around you as well. If you have a team of people around you, it's going to be a much more kind of pleasurable experience, because you're going to be able to lean on one another and you're going to be able to have feedback and different ideas. You can do it on your own, absolutely, but if you can bring a team of people around you, that's going to be an easier journey for you, I would say. So why do people pledge on crowdfunding campaigns? Again, it's a mix between the people that believe in your idea, so those that are already invested in what you do, or you as a project owner or your organisation. But also there's a group of people that may well be looking for that reward that you have on offer. So if you can tell a really engaging story, if you can have some really wonderful rewards that are appealing to all of your kind of strands of your network, then that is going to be a really good recipe for success. I've talked about rewards a lot so far, and rewards can take many shapes and forms. So I mentioned having a varied selection and varied price points. We do see rewards being something as simple as a social media shout out or a thank you from the organisation, maybe a little video message that's sent through via email. These things that don't come at too much of a financial cost to yourself or even a time cost would be priced at quite a small amount of money. So that might be something like a £5 to £10 pledge, where people can claim that and they just get a nice warm fuzzy feeling for having supported you. The other end of that spectrum is those kind of corporate and sponsorship type rewards, things where it might be looking at a reward that's priced in the hundreds or even thousands, where people could have either some corporate sponsorship of what you're doing. You might have the capacity to be able to offer some kind of business team day or corporate team day, or you might be a musician that can, you know, go and play at a Christmas party, but it's going to cost that business by way of claiming on the reward for a set amount of money. And then in between, you've got things like experiences and events. We had a really lovely project last year who did doorstep gigs, so people could book them to come and play on their doorstep or in their living room. And that was a really lovely way of having a unique experience for their fans. So think about out of the box ideas, one-off experiences, making people feel special. So exclusivity is great. Don't offer a huge amount of particular rewards. You can always add more if you have the capacity. But when people feel like they're getting something that not everybody can get, and they're only getting it for the duration of the live crowdfunder, if they pledge on this particular reward, that is when you're going to really incentivize people to get behind you and claim these rewards. And then, as I mentioned, simple thank yous. We even have people putting up things like a warm, fuzzy feeling, or knowing that you're doing some good, making something creative happen in your community. It doesn't have to be tangible. It's a way to signpost people to different price points. You might want to think about products and services as well. If you've got a creative service that you can offer, or a product that you're hoping to raise money to actually put into production, but also think about talking to your community. Speak to your friends and family, speak to those in your network and the business community to see if they might be able to support you by offering a reward to put on your page. Ideally, they would be offered in kind, so gifted to you, so it doesn't come at a financial cost to yourself. This is just a brief snapshot of some of the rewards that we've seen come in over the years. So we've got things like early access signed CD. So maybe somebody's putting their CD into production, and actually if you purchase one via the crowdfunder, you'll get one of the early bird CDs, and it will go out to you and it'll be signed by the band. You've got other things like a food and medicine workshop, which sounds very exciting. Digital downloads. If you're musicians, that's quite, I imagine, an easy thing to do, is to send out a digital download kind of exclusively, maybe before the actual CD launches. And then you've got things you want to think about from your community, which might be, you know, high street gift vouchers, meals for two at the local pub. Some of your friends and family might be, I don't know, tutors and something, piano lessons, online tutoring. We've even had things like an Excel masterclass, which doesn't appeal to everybody, but actually to some people that's quite useful. We've had things like MOTs at discounted rates. Again, doesn't seem very exciting, but if you need to MOT your car and it's going to cost you £10 less getting it from your crowdfunder, chances are someone's going to claim it. So think about that mass appeal, as well as those people that are already invested in you and what you do. Okay, so the wonderful Gaynor from SamBaYaBamBa was hoping to be here today. They've had an incredible journey with their crowdfunding campaign. You'll hear in the video and in the audio that they came in hoping to raise around £5,000 for their project. They're currently sat on around £48,000, almost £49,000. So they're a massive success story from a Creative Scotland crowd match. You see on the slide here that they were supported by a huge amount of additional funders as well. So not only Creative Scotland, but also the National Emergencies Trust, the British Airways Community Fund. Lots of different additional supporters have got behind them, and they've had 345 supporters in total. That does include some of that extra funding, but huge amounts of money going into their project. So I'm going to play this video for you now. It's relatively long. It would normally be the same as the section that we'd have with the project owner. So I'm going to put all of the links into the chat box while that's going on and try and answer some of your questions as well. But it's really great inspiration for some of you guys today, in the hope that you can put those applications in and get your crowdfunding journey underway. Hi Gaynor, thank you for joining me today. How are you doing?
I'm great, yeah. Nice cold wintry morning here in Scotland.
Have you got snow up there?
Not at the moment, no, but I think it could be on its way. But yeah, a bit chilly for a Monday morning.
Well, thank you so much for joining me. I was wondering, because you were so successful with your Creative Scotland 2022 crowd match last year, would you be able to tell us a little bit about your project, so about SamBaYaBamBa Youth, and also what drew you to applying for Creative Scotland, please?
Yeah, sure. So I'm the project manager for SamBaYaBamBa Youth Band, which is a youth music project which at the time had been running for 6 years in Scotland. So at the start of last year, 2022, I was doing my usual sort of looking through different funds that were available to apply for, and came across the Creative Scotland crowdfunding one, which seemed like a really good deal. You know, if you raised X amount, then you were going to get match funding up to 10 grand through Creative Scotland. So when I was at the stage that you guys who are listening in on Tuesday are at, I was just looking at the expression of interest form from Creative Scotland and Crowd Match, which was really simple to fill in. It took me, I think, about 10 minutes to fill that in, just as an expression of interest. And it was all information that I already had. So it really didn't take long at all. And that then went to Crowd Match, Crowdfunder and Creative Scotland to select the people who were going to be picked to get the Creative Scotland match funding. Which, yeah, that part of it is such a simple process. So if you're, you know, obviously you've logged into the webinar to get a little bit more information. What I would say from somebody who's already done it is just put in your expression of interest this week. It's so simple, it literally will not take you more than 10 minutes. And it stands you in good stead for being one of the ones who are picked.
Amazing, thank you. And then obviously you were picked and you came through to our kind of cohort of projects, and you went through the crowdfunding process. Now, was that something which was maybe slightly alien to you at first? I understand obviously different organisations kind of fundraise in their own way, but in terms of crowdfunding, did you find that quite easy to embrace, or was there any bits of advice you might give to potential projects that they might not be too familiar with that concept of going out and crowdfunding, you know, connecting with their local community?
Yeah. It was a slightly alien concept to us. We had done a small crowdfunder about 4 or 5 years before that, which was fairly successful. We'd raised a few grand, so we knew we could get a few grand. We were confident in that. The process itself, especially being supported by Crowdfunder, was really, really simple. You know, you do get a lot of support from Crowdfunder to, you know, put your campaign together and throughout the campaign. Going out, I think we were in a good position. I think everyone who's actually at this stage of even considering Crowdfunder, you know, you've got a great project, or you wouldn't be sitting in on this webinar. So you've already got an exciting project that people will want to be involved with. You know, I've spoken to a few other people who've thought about doing crowdfunding and thought about applying for this one, and they kind of were speaking themselves out of it, which I think is a big mistake, because they kind of feel like they're bugging people for money, or, you know, begging for money, which it really isn't. You know, you've got a great project, you know, as ours. I firmly believe that we had a great project. And the way I kind of looked at it is, you're giving people the opportunity to be involved in a helpful way with something really exciting that people want to get on board with. So it's it's not a case of, you know, harassing people for money. It is allowing people who support your project anyway. Maybe they buy your products, or they come along to your events or gigs or whatever. You're giving them an additional opportunity to really help when it's needed, and people really buy into that. It's an exciting opportunity for them and for you and your organisation.
That's a really lovely way of looking at it, and I think that's spot on. You know, it's giving the community an opportunity to get invested in something that they truly believe is important and has an impact, and you guys are testament to that. We can see you've got, you know, 345 supporters, so that's 345 different you know, pledges or donations that were made to your page. Some of those are going to be part of the extra funding, and we can see here that you received a huge amount of extra funding, not just from the Creative Scotland crowd match, but I think, you know, part of the process of launching your crowdfunder and having access to your project dashboard and seeing that you'd been matched with additional extra funding partners potentially was quite an exciting time for you guys, because you managed to pull in quite a bit of additional funding, didn't you, from all of these different pots that you can see on the screen now. Again,
Yeah.
was that quite a simple process for you, or was that maybe unexpected, considering you'd come in for one particular pot, which was the Creative Scotland crowd match?
Yeah, it was completely unexpected. You know, we simply went in with a target of raising about £5,000, and aware that, you know, we would get some match funding from Creative Scotland, and that was fine for us. That felt achievable and, you know, suited our needs at the time. What we didn't realise when we'd set up the campaign was we were then eligible for various other funds. So there's other organisations who are partners of Crowdfunder, and, you know, depending on your type of organisation or project, you get matched up with these partner organisations. So just after ours went live, we were matched up with the National Emergencies Trust. So every pound that people were donating from our own crowd, they were match funding that pound for pound up to a maximum of £250, which was absolutely brilliant and totally unexpected. There was a short form, I believe, to fill in for that, but again, it's, you know, it's nothing complicated. If you've done funded applications before, this is a very simple one, very accessible. And then further down our campaign towards the end of the month, British Airways Community Fund came on board as a new partner for Crowdfunder. And because we'd already reached certain targets, we had to push it a little bit more to reach. I think it was, you know, we'd kind of stretched our target by this time because it was doing so well. Once we reached £20,000, British Airways matched us with an additional £20,000. And that was very last minute, very unexpected. Again, a very short form to fill in to make sure we were eligible, but very simple and straightforward process. So yeah, there's lots of, you know, as well as the Creative Scotland funding, there will be different partners, depending on the nature of your project and organisation, that you can hook into and get additional money. And on top of that, you also get the gift aid from your donations as well. If people tick that box, then you get gift aid. So it all really adds up very simply.
That's so good to hear. And you guys, you embraced it so well. And you can see just in the financial raise how successful you were. Would you say that there was any additional benefits for you as an organisation taking part in the crowd match and crowdfunding? Quite often we see, you know, just raised awareness about what you guys do, maybe increased amount of people wanting to take part or kind of following you on social media. Did you notice that there was a bit of an increase in those types of things as well as the financial raise?
Yeah, there has been. You know, obviously using social media, and giving people this opportunity to be involved in it, it gave people a different perspective of what it is. You know, we were quite a visible group anyway in Glasgow, but it really, I think, let people understand what it costs to run brilliant projects like this. You know, there are a lot of costs involved, so it was really useful for us to be able to reach out to people and say, this is a great project, but if we need to keep it going, it does need extra funding. So just making people realise that even though something looks fun and involves young people, there's actually, you know, professional costs involved in making those things happen. So it's yeah, it was good to have that opportunity to just speak out to our crowd, and also yeah, just reaching new people. You know, there's lots of people who donated to our project who we don't know, and when we set out in this, I thought, right, okay, we'll have lots of parents and family of the youth band members, people involved in our own network will probably donate, you know, chuck in a tenner or whatever. But there was actually lots of individuals were donating who we don't know as well. You know, my understanding is, like, some people just go onto like the Crowdfunder website and look for projects that they think sound exciting. So I think we were getting some donations in via that, which is great, and obviously just spreading the word for us. Another thing that was useful for us was, obviously we perform at various gigs throughout the year. So something we did was people who were booking the band to play at a certain time throughout the year, we encouraged them, instead of paying us the fee once we delivered the gig, to give us that gig fee up front and pay it into the crowdfunder. So, for example, one of the festivals who had booked the youth band were going to give us a fee of £750, which is great. But because they paid that into the crowdfunder, we got an extra additional £250 via the National Emergencies Trust, making it up to £1,000. So there's other ways that you can sort of reach new people, and if you've already got customers and clients, encourage them in whatever way suits your organisation to pay into the crowdfunder, and then you're going to get some match funding from it. So it's people who would be paying you for services anyway, but if they do it via this, then you raise a little bit more money as well.
It's a really good idea to kind of think about your streams of fundraising and income, and see if you can channel things into the crowdfunder while it's live. We often kind of see people being able to do that with maybe, pre-sale for gig tickets or something along those lines. They might have an event coming up, and rather than just purely selling tickets to that via a website, if people can funnel that onto their crowdfunder just for the duration of the live campaign, it can be a really great way to boost those match funds as well. Thank you so much, Gaynor. There's some really, really useful information there. Did you have any kind of takeaway piece of advice for people that are maybe thinking about entering into the crowd match, a bit undecided at the moment? What would you advise them to do?
So at this moment, at the expression of interest stage, is 100% just get that in this week. It literally will take you no more than 10 minutes. And then, if you get picked, and fingers crossed you'll do, don't overthink it. You've got your project in place, or it's maybe not your project, it may be representing an organisation. All the information that you need to put your campaign together, you've got it anyway. You're not reinventing the wheel. You've already got that information. So it's not a huge amount of extra work to put the campaign together. So don't be put off by that. But also, once your campaign is up and running, do dedicate at least one staff member's time to doing that. And if that's beyond your own capacity, maybe you're just a sole trader, if that's going to stretch you too much, consider employing somebody else to take this on, because they will pay for themselves in the amount of money that they raise. So it's not an extra cost for your organisation. But it's definitely worth dedicating. Once you get picked, dedicate at least one person to oversee this project. And it's a really exciting job for somebody to do, because it's you see all the funds coming in and building, and it's an exciting thing to be part of. And it gets quite addictive, so do be careful.
It can be. You live and breathe it, don't you, for the duration of the crowdfunding campaign? But the proof is in, as much as you put in, more you put in, the more you're going to get out of it. So like you say, really do dedicate that time. I think is really important. And we've got all of the resources available for everybody who is taking part. As Gaynor mentioned, there's lots of support available from Crowdfunder. We will make sure we give you all the help necessary to make a really successful campaign, and the proof is there. So I will share the link to your particular project, Gaynor, for people to go and take a look at, to get some inspiration. But thank you so much for joining us today, and I wish you all the best with the future of SamBaYaBamBa Youth Street Band.
Thank you very much, Zoe, and good luck to everyone applying.
Okay, so thank you for sticking with us, guys. I did put a little message in the chat box there that we are going to overrun a little bit, but it was quite a lengthy video. Normally we'd have somebody talking in real time, but I did want to make sure that you got all of that content, because Gaynor really does cover off some brilliant points. They were so successful in what they did, and partly really for just the level of engagement that they had with their community, with their young people that they already work with. But as she mentioned, beyond that as well, they had donations coming through from people that they didn't know. So it's a real testament to the amount you put in is going to really play dividends in how successful you are as well. So just really quickly, we'll just go over the next few slides. We've got enough time for that Q&A as well. So I did mention earlier on about exploring other projects and campaigns. Take a look at the main website. You'll be able to see, clicking on the explore function just at the top of the main page there, you can explore and look at different successful projects within your area or within your creative industry. But in terms of the crowd match itself, when you click onto the funding page, and I put the link to that into the chat box, you can actually see at the bottom there all of last year's entrants. You'll be able to see their success stories, take inspiration from their pages. Maybe it's something that resonates with you as a project owner as well. Think about yourself as a potential supporter and take away bits of inspiration and try and replicate that on your own pages. There's loads of support on offer from Crowdfunder UK. Gaynor touched upon that a little bit in her bit of audio as well. But we have webinars that happen regularly. We'll be doing a webinar for the shortlisted projects as well, where we can look in more depth about putting that successful campaign together. We do run weekly drop-in sessions, which are all hosted via Zoom. So you can come along for free, talk with myself or another member of the team at Crowdfunder, and also hear from other project owners as well. Get some really good peer-to-peer support, ask any questions about your crowdfunder or potential crowdfunding ideas. We've got those online learning guides that I mentioned, so the online learn platform. We've got the Knowledge Hub, which is full of amazing information and hints and tips on every single aspect of your crowdfunding campaign. You'll also receive tailored email advice. So once you come through the platform as a potential Creative Scotland crowd match entrant, you'll be signposted to all of the relevant information as part of the creative industries and how you can crowdfund for creativity. We have a really wonderful customer support team down here in Cornwall as well. They're a really small but highly dedicated team. So I do recommend that if you need any questions, kind of technical questions answered or anything like that, do have a look at our help centre first. If you struggle to find the answer there, then by all means drop an email to our support team. And then we also have a live project dashboard. So when you are launching your crowdfunding campaign, you'll have a dashboard that you can access. You can apply for extra funding, post updates to your supporters, manage every single aspect of your campaign via that dashboard. In fact, this is just a snapshot of the Learn platform for you. So I mentioned those 4 different modules. So you've got introduction to crowdfunding, planning your project, creating your project, and running your project. That encompasses all you need to know to be able to do that really successfully. This is a little snapshot of that platform. So really user-friendly, lots of multiple choice questions, videos to have a little look at, just to get you crowdfunding like a pro. Right at the beginning of this session, I mentioned how important networks are. So one of the things that you'll need to do as part of the Learn platform is put together a network map. So a network map will be your key resource that you will go back to time and time again. You're going to look at the people that are immediately around you. So that's going to be friends, family, team members. You're also going to look at any existing supporters, so people that might already use your service, maybe collaborative organizations or partners like suppliers, things like that. You're going to look at your social media following, local businesses, local people, local press and blogs. You're going to create a really nice broad spectrum of all of the different people that you can contact about this crowdfunding campaign. Whether you want to do that in a spreadsheet or on a massive piece of paper stuck on your kitchen wall, whatever it might be, you need to know who's part of those individual branches of your network, how you're going to contact them, and ideally when will be a good time to contact them. You can also build your network as well. So you can use things that are already at your disposal, like Facebook or search engines, to be able to actually search for people that will be able to broaden your network. So for example, Facebook is great for looking at different community groups and people around you that are talking about things that are to do with your project or to do with your creative industry. You can search for these groups. You can send a message to admin, see if they mind you posting within those groups to maybe promote your crowdfunder. If you've not got social media set up specifically for your project or your creative organization or business, make sure you do that as part of the planning process. It's a lot better to centralize all of that promotion with a social media platform that's linked directly to your organization or your business or your, creative idea, rather than your own personal social media platforms. The other thing to use would be something like Google or a equivalent search engine, but this time you're going to be searching via keywords, but you're going to click on the news function and see who's actually writing about things with a similar subject matter to your creative industry, to your project. You should then be able to contact those people, whether it be local newspapers, media, people blogging about it, influencers, and see if you can queue up those conversations early on to make sure that you can get them shouting about your project when the time is right. So in terms of timing, you want to be thinking about securing donations from your nearest and dearest straight away. So your friends, your family, your core network. You want them to be pledging on your crowdfunding campaign as soon as you go live. From that point, you're going to slowly build outwards from your network, in your network. So you're going to reach out to people that you'd normally speak to, use word of mouth, pick up the phone, talk to people in a way that you normally would communicate with them. Beyond that, once you've raised around 20% of your overall total, your initial target, you're going to start emailing people. Do not send blanket emails. Wherever you can, send it to a personal contact or at least a contact name. Don't just send a generic blanket email. It will fall potentially into a spam folder. It will not get read. People really need to feel like they are personally getting invested in what you're doing. Then at around 40% raised, you're going to start shouting about it on social media. So it really is a case of starting small and building that momentum. Beyond that, you're going to be looking at things like press and blogs. You might even have a few events where you can do some fundraising throughout the course of the crowdfunder, maybe even a launch event or a big closing event that people actually buy a ticket for via your crowdfunding campaign. I mentioned the project dashboard. This is a really brilliant thing to keep on top of. Make sure you're checking in with it regularly. You can actually look at how many pledges are coming in on which days. You might want to compare that to the promotion that you've been doing for your campaign. You'll have a trending towards figure. So based on the activity of donations that's come into your page, you'll be able to see how much money we anticipate you raising based on your activity to date. And then also you'll be able to manage all of those different aspects of your campaign. So you'll be able to, close it early, which we don't recommend you do because you'll miss out on match funding, but you'll be able to edit your project, post updates, apply for any of that extra funding, all of those wonderful things. So all of the tools are at your disposal to really make the most of the live campaign as well. Okay, that was a slight whistle-stop tour of the last little bit of the crowdfunding. So let's see what we've have come through in the chat box. Dave, I think, answered your question already about existing Creative Scotland support. As part of the T's and C's, it does mention there that if you've been in receipt of other Creative Scotland funding, so including the RFOs and the Open Fund grant recipients, providing that the funding is for a different activity to that you're crowdfunding for, you can still potentially be part of the crowd match as well. We've got here, is Creative Scotland crowd match a regular or annual, or is this a one-off? So we've been running it annually for the last kind of handful of years. It's one of those things that it's on an annual basis. And no, it's not a one-off. We have done it before, but at the moment it kind of comes around annually. So it won't necessarily happen again until 2024. So I do recommend that you put in that application if it's something that interests you for this year. Okay, question from Anne. How well do profit organisations do? Anne is part of a profit organisation who have a big social aim by making and donating skincare products for local organisations and charities, including animal rescue centres. Just wondering how for-profit businesses do with this type of funding. If you take a look at last year's entrants, we did have quite a few for-profit organisations. really it's all to do with how well you can engage with your network, how well you can actually tell your story. You might want to highlight your kind of social aims as well, and that lovely impact that you will have with your being able to provide those skincare products to different community organizations. But really, ultimately, in terms of being a successful crowdfunder, it comes down to your ability to tell your story effectively and to reach out to that network. One thing that you will have, which is wonderful, is you will potentially have a lovely array of products that you can offer by way of a reward. You might also want to have a pay it forward type reward, where you can actually, for a set amount of money that people pledge on, maybe that would provide a skincare package that could go to one of the community organizations. So think quite creatively about what you already do and how people can get on board by way of those rewards to really help boost your crowdfunding and make use of that live match funding as well. A question from Alistair: if people donate in cash or check, can we add this to the Crowdfunder platform, and would it be eligible for a live match fund? In terms of people donating cash or check, that wouldn't be able to be kind of paid by way of a transaction onto the crowdfunding campaign unless it came through maybe your organization. So you could do that, and you can pay it on via a credit or debit card from the organization. However, do bear in mind that that individual supporter numbers is only ever going to be that first donation that gets matched by an individual supporter. So you want to kind of discourage people, if possible, from doing that and actually making use of donating directly to the platform. If they can't do that, then yes, you can donate via your organization. Always keep an audit trail. Always make sure you can show where that money's come from. You might want to post a comment when you pay it on, and you might want to post an update as well, just to let your supporters know, and Creative Scotland and those looking at your page, where that money's come from. Your comment might be, big thank you to naming the supporters, for example, for their contribution. In terms of it being match funded, if it comes through you guys, that first payment, that first transaction will potentially be matched. Future ones will not be though. So do always encourage people to donate directly via the platform if possible. Just time for the last question, I think, coming in from Alison. Will Creative Scotland continue matching donations towards your stretch target, providing still up to £10,000? That should be in the T's and C's. That's a question that I was trying to get clarified before we started this session, and I will pop it in the follow-up email for you. But I would, in the first instance, just think really realistically about that initial target. In terms of the applications, I just want to say now that they are open. The applications form is ready and waiting for you to all go and head over to that funding page and click on apply now, and you'll be able to fill out all of that relevant information. I've put a link to the T's and C's in the chat box there. I'm just going to pop a few little links in for all of that wonderful additional support that I mentioned. If you have any questions at all, please do pop along to one of our drop-in sessions. I'll just bring up here for you guys the next steps for you. So do head over to the Creative Scotland Crowd Match page as part of our website. As I mentioned, links in the chat box, and I'll send it through in the email as well. Put in those applications, put in your expression of interest. That will get the ball rolling with all of that communication with ourselves and Creative Scotland, and seeing just whether you might be able to get shortlisted for this amazing match fund. Do check out the terms and conditions as well, and explore those other projects, not only the ones that have been matched by Creative Scotland, but also any other creative industry projects that really resonate with you as supporters. I am going to wrap it up there because we have run over a little bit. Thank you so much to everybody that stuck with us to the end. We will send out a recording of this as well as that follow-up email, all of those relevant links to get you started and answer any of your questions. And it just remains to wish you the best of luck, and we look forward to seeing those applications come through in the coming weeks. Thank you so much for joining us. Bye.